Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
There is no question whatsoever that Saddam is seeking and is working and is advancing towards the development of nuclear weapons. No question whatsoever. And there is no question that once he acquires it, history shifts immediately.
Those comments by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu back in 2002 helped encourage the U.S. to invade Iraq. And his argument sounds strikingly similar to comments he made both in 2012 and earlier this week, where he alleged Iran's continuing pursuit of a nuclear bomb. In a 2012 speech to the United Nations, Netanyahu used a cartoon drawing of a bomb to depict the Iranian nuclear threat. And a full-blown PowerPoint presentation just days before Donald Trump is set to decide whether or not the United States will withdraw from the Iran deal, Netanyahu boasted new evidence he says proves Iran violated the deal.
Iran lied. Big time. After signing the nuclear deal in 2015, Iran intensified its efforts to hide its secret nuclear file. The Iran deal, the nuclear deal, is based on lies. It's based on Iranian lies and Iranian deception.
Joining me now is foreign affairs columnist Bobby Ghosh and foreign policy analyst Rula Jibril, and Jennifer Rubin is back with me. So, panel, I feel like everything old is new again. We have a push for sort of saying that Iran is in violation of the nuclear of the deal struck by the Obama administration, claiming that they are still pushing toward a nuclear bomb. Some questions as to whether that is true, but a real push to it's not clear what. And I don't want to come back to that, but we do have some other information that is interesting about the ways in which the Trump administration seems to be trying to discredit even the idea of having a nuclear deal with Iran. And, you know, Rula, I have to come to you on this first because you first alerted me to the story that The Guardian has reported, and I should say this is not confirmed by NBC News, it's The Guardian reporting, that a source with details claims that there's been a dirty tricks campaign in which an Oppo research firm, an Israeli-based Oppo research firm, was hired, and the idea being that people acting for Trump would discredit those who were pivotal in selling the Iran deal, making it easier to pull out of it. And the people that they were supposedly doing Oppo research on included Ben Rhodes, who worked for the Obama administration, and a guy named Colin Kahl, who's actually tweeted about it and said that he's had some weird interactions his wife have had as well. What do you make of this?
Look, if there's anybody in violation of the Iran deal, it's the Americans themselves. The ambassador of Germany has been lobbying German firms not to trade with Iran. President Trump visited Israel last year. Supposedly, they hired an Israeli firm. Allegedly, they hired an Israeli firm. There's rumors that this Israeli firm is the same one that was hired by Harvey Weinstein to spy on these women, where there's no confirmation of that. However, to spy on American citizens. So he's hiring a foreign spy agency to spy on former diplomats who worked with the Obama team. I don't know if this is legal. I'm not a lawyer, but I think this is immoral. And for the least, shows us a picture that the president has already decided to leave the Iran deal, and he's trying to find justification and dirt on these people who were part of the Iran deal. His opposition to the Iran deal is an ideological opposition that whatever Obama did, he needs to undo and kill. The problem with that, the international community will not follow him on that. And if Israel will push him once again to have a war with Iran, which is what they seem wants, and we're heading towards another war of choice in the Middle East, the consequences this time will be devastating for the United States itself, and I would say for the rest of the region.
And is there, Bobby, is there any actual evidence that Iran is in violation of the deal that was made between the Obama administration and literally the world and Iran?
No, once the deal was made, Iran stuck to its side of the bargain. What Netanyahu was trying to make the argument there that several years before the deal was made,
right,
Iran lied. But here's the thing, we always knew that.
Right.
Obama and his negotiators, all the countries negotiating, went into that negotiation assuming that Iran was a bad actor, to prove retroactively that, yes, you were right, they were a bad actor. It's interesting in theory, and it has certain practical considerations for the future, but it does not change the facts of the deal. The deal assumed that Iran was planning a nuke.
It is Monday, the 7th of May of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. That's right, folks. It is Monday, and we've had quite a busy weekend again, have we not, huh? Yeah, well, Giuliani filled the airwaves, as Giuliani would, because, well, you know, you go to the mats with the Giuliani you got, not with the Giuliani you want. Boy, I was on the Tim Corrimal show, taped that yesterday. Oh, and it was first broadcast earlier this morning at 3:30 in the morning on the East Coast. I mean, on the West Coast, and on the East Coast, that would be 6:30. So not so bad on the East Coast. And it will reprise again today, 4 p.m. on the West Coast. That would be 7 p.m. on the East Coast. But it was pretty much devoted to Rudy and his proclamations and whatnot. But, Rudy is kind of a mini-me. So when they say there's method to the madness, well, there's madness indeed. Some sort of method, but, they make it up as they go along, and they roll with the punches, wherever the punches may make them roll. Speaking of which, starting off at the top, there is a big question. In that Trump could not get his own spy agencies to spy on American citizens, so he hired a foreign spy agency to spy on American citizens. But my question is, where did he get the money to pay a foreign spy agency to spy on American citizens? Curious, isn't it? And also, when the president obstructs justice, that's not obstructing justice. That is fighting back. So I suppose it would follow then that when the president is laundering money from the Russian mob, it's not money laundering. It's just the president fighting back. I have to say, the only people who would think like that are pretty much mob bosses and their underlings. And an underling we shall not be. What else has happened in the world? Looks like Gina Haspel's nomination to run the CIA might be hitting the rocks. Trump came out and Twitter rage this morning about the Democrats don't want a qualified woman. Well, I have to say, Gina Haspel running the CIA would literally be torture. It would be torture. And I'm not saying it because she's a woman. I'm just saying when you're an advocate of torture, it is torture. And we're not going to go down that road again, Mr. Trump. And there is a Nuremberg in Pennsylvania, and we can set up the trials there, quite efficiently, sir. so I would wash down. I would watch out. Apparently, Melania Trump slaps Dawn's hand away when he wants to hold her hand because she's an old world European. Okay, well, I thought old world Europeans were, well, I'm not going to go there. You can see the pictures yourself, okay? You can look at Michelle Obama's photographs over time, and you can look at Melania's, and you can come to your own conclusion about the dignified private life of the old world European. Okay, I've been to old world Europe, and I don't know, my old world European ex-wife had no problem holding my hand. In fact, she would go to hold my hand. So I don't know what they're saying about that. Senate Republicans are starting to freak out about the 2018 midterm election, and I would say there's something wrong in that reportage. Starting? I think they've been freaking out for quite a while. Okay, well, more news will be coming out about Trump spying on American citizens. Nunez wants to bring in Kerry for violation of the Logan Act. Huh. Okay, well, it's getting very, very odd. And I think the die is cast. And the ship of state does not stop on a dime. When you cut off the engines, it moves inexorably forward. You can't stop it. And if you're not careful, it's going to run right over you, Mr. Trump. Okay, what else is on the rest of the menu? It's Monday. I apologize. Well, on the rest of the menu, this is a maddening story. They're all maddening, of course, but this one is extra maddening. A 20-year-old black National Hockey League prospect is given a police escort after racist threats from an opposing team. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, not from the team, but from the fans, opposing fans. Regardless, stop it. Actors were paid between $60 and $200 to attend New Orleans City Council meetings in support of a proposed power plant. Well, I got to tell you, since Katrina, actors and performers of all ilk are having problems getting jobs. So, I mean, a gig is a gig. And the California grocery chain, Albertsons, is sued over barring Hispanic employees from speaking Spanish on the job while on their breaks or even when assisting Spanish-speaking customers. English only here. Well, I would say let's give everybody a test, and if you can't pass the test, then you can't demand English only. So there. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Scott Pruitt's political appointees at EPA are clamping down on public records requests related to Scott Pruitt. And the man who will supervise Mueller if Trump fires Rosenstein always says yes to the Federalist Society. I've been warning you for decades, and now it has come to pass. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page there is the chat room link. Kelly Lincoln, our roaring girl, monitors that and curates it too. So there. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the donate contribute buttons, and we are unable to do this without you. So thank you for your generosity in keeping the lights on and the lights blinking in their proper protocol. That is always important. Follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. We're also on Facebook, and we're tightening that up. So if you want to go there, go there. What else? Oh, you can follow me at Justice Putnam on Twitter, and I also post the show notes and links in a diary on Daily Co's, and I'm on Daily Co's as Justice Putnam. Podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy can be had by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, and if it's on iHeart, okay, all right, I won't say anything bad about iHeart, except that we hate iHeart. But I don't know. If that's the protocol you got to use and the platform you got to use, then that's fine with us. Go right ahead. Okay, so this first story here about this hockey league prospect with the Detroit Red Wings. It's by T-Bog out of Raw Story. 20-year-old black hockey player and the Detroit Red Wings system had to be provided with a police escort and a security guard after receiving racist threats from opposing fans. And this is ESPN reporting, too, so a little bit of gravitas in the sports world there. According to the report, Giovanni Smith was suspended from an Ontario Hockey League playoff game last week for giving the finger to the opposing bench, which has led opposing fans to take out their wrath on him. There were physical threats after Game 6. Rangers general manager Mike McKenzie said, that was told to the Waterloo Region Record. Before we went up to the Sioux, there were racial things in his inbox on social media. It was pretty disgusting to see some of the stuff that he had to deal with. The report states the entire team received a police escort from the airport, and the suspended athlete watched the final playoff game from the press box with a security guard posted at the door. It's heartbreaking, to be honest, the general manager said. He shouldn't have to endure it. He did a good job of turning the other way. I think the unfortunate part, and it pains me to say this, is that he's probably used to it by now. He's probably heard things before, which is brutal. Well, I guess it's never too late to wake up. Next offering here, the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays, is an article out of Think Progress by E.A. Crunden. Some of the concerned citizens who turned up at city council meetings in New Orleans to support a proposed power plant were, in fact, paid actors, according to a new report. The Lens New Orleans reported on Friday that at least 4 people received payment for appearing at city council meetings last October and February. The meetings were held to survey public opinion on efforts by Entergy, an energy company that serves areas throughout the Deep South, to develop a new power plant in New Orleans located in the city's 9th ward. Flood them out. Terraform the area so all the indigenous scum and vermin are moved away, and then build a big power plant there and make money. Oh, could the 9th Ward flood again? Yes, the 9th Ward could flood again. Not only in this reporter's opinion, but it's not an opinion, it's a fact. In March, the city council approved the power plant by a vote of 6-1, overruling the objections of opponents who say the plant is expensive and will pollute eastern New Orleans. A number of local residents spoke in favor of the power plant over the course of more than 22 meetings, but doubts are now being raised over just how authentic those voices were. Roughly 50 people turned out to support a $210 million effort to build a power plant in the city during one October meeting, but several attendees said they were paid $60 to wear orange shirts and express support for the endeavor. Wow, nice. Now, actors with speaking roles who read pre-written statements were paid $200. And one told the publication he recognized as many as 15 people in the audience as local performers. I got to tell you, it's hard to get acting gigs in that part of the South right now. You get what you can get. I used to deride my classmates from the performing school that I went to for taking on commercials, because commercials are beneath true serious actors. But, you know, that was because I was a kid and I was full of myself, and I realized you get work where you get work. And, I mean, even Dustin Hoffman did a Volkswagen ad that actually started airing after The Graduate. He did the ad before he was in The Graduate, and I think they rushed the ad to right through production or whatever and got that thing up there to ride on the coattails of that. Yes. I not only know history, folks, I remember it. So it's hard. It's hard getting a job down there. I mean, look, wear an orange shirt, read some lines. I can do that. Let's see. They paid us to sit through the meeting and clap every time someone said something against wind and solar power. And that was one actor who said that he was not political but needed the money. See, this is the state that a lot of people are put in. And it's not just actors either. How many people hunker down and shut up because they got to go to the mill to be able to get food on the table for their family? And they don't dare express an opinion. Even at the end of the bar. There's some people, well, now there are some people that can. And we know who they are. But don't be the college boy expressing an opinion at the end of the bar. They'll let you know right away that your opinion could get somebody hurt. And if you're like me and played football, you know, yeah, get hurt. Isn't that part of the game? The actors were asked to sign non-disclosure agreements. You never are asked. Sign this or you don't get the gig. Give me a break. Barring them from discussing the agreement, several agreed to speak with the Lens on condition of being anonymous. Kehoe, who moved to North Carolina in the time period following the meetings, agreed to be named after a friend who recognized him at the gatherings encouraged him to come forward. The staged performances seem to have been organized by two men, Garrett Wilkerson and Daniel Taylor, who are not believed to be from New Orleans, or New Orleans, if you want to know the nomenclature. In a Facebook message, Wilkinson laid out the specifics of the job to one actor. The council already supports it. This is mostly just to show them that the citizens don't have a problem with it. Free pizza and a round of drinks after it's over, at which point pay will be dispersed in cash. I'm prepared to offer you a non-speaking role for $60 plus bonus potential. Wow. You're an extra, and you're an actor with a speaking part. Nice. Talking points offered to those with speaking roles included comparing New Orleans to a developing country and indicating the power plant might reduce the crime. Actors were later paid for their efforts at a local Dave & Buster's. Okay. Now, of course, the energy company released a statement saying that the company played no role in hiring the actors, because you always go to a third party. You go to a job service and say, you know, I need, you know, some janitors, and I need a couple of clerical staff, and I need somebody who can work in the warehouse. And the job placement people say, sure, we can do that. And they got people there and say, we're going to send you over there. And they charge, in this case, the company, the two guys hiring these actors would say, okay, you pay us $130 for non-speaking roles, and you pay us $400. I'll make it $425 for speaking roles, and then you pay, up to $200 for the speaking roles, and up to $60 for the non-speaking roles, and that's how you make your money. Everybody does it. So they have plausible deniability. When I worked in the oil company, that's how I first got my job with the oil company. I was working for a contractor. And if there's a mistake made, the oil company blames the contractor. Of course, now the energy company says that the power plant is necessary to offset potential transmission failures across New Orleans, but the plant has been met with strong opposition from environmentalists who worry it will exacerbate pollution in the southern city. But everybody knows environmentalists are terrorists now, You cannot listen to them. They just want to destroy America as we know it. And I guess America, as some people know it, is a polluted shithole. Okay. Now, this company, Entergy, has come under fire for power outages across the city unrelated to the new power plant. Between June 1st of 2016 and May 31st of 2017, the company said it had experienced roughly 2,600 outages. Of those, 1,500 happened during fair weather conditions with minimal interference from rain and wind. Wow. Is this energy company running the cable company here? Finishing up here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is another article on Think Progress, this time by Jason Linkins. A California grocery chain has been slapped with a federal discrimination lawsuit alleging that it forbids its Hispanic workers from speaking Spanish at work. The EEOC has filed suit against Albertson's Companies, Inc. on behalf of Hispanic employees at the company's San Diego stores. The workers say they were subjected to harassment and hostility because of a policy that bars them from speaking Spanish anywhere on store property, even during their breaks. And as we find out later in this article, or you will, they even barred them from speaking Spanish to Spanish-speaking customers, in spite of the fact that the company-wide policy was to do just that. And in fact, the company that owns Albertsons bought 4 stores in Texas called Amigos. Do not say that name of the store that you work in. It is in Spanish. Well, obviously, it's coming from the San Diego stores because it's a new day. A new day. Let's see. 2 workers, Zamorano and Stevenson, claim they were admonished by store director Richard Brown for speaking Spanish while standing in front of the store on break. In December of the same year, Zamorano was reprimanded again for using Spanish while attempting to assist a Spanish-speaking customer. Well, after that first incident, Zamorano attempted to complain via the company's hotline, only to be told by a representative who took the complaint that She needed to speak English because she was living in the United States. Excuse me, I am speaking English to you right now. This is what's so dumbfounding to me, is that what's so wrong about learning another language? It really does open up the brain. Is that the reason to not learn another language, is because the brain must be closed? Well, we know what this is all about. Okay, so the EEOC is seeking a court order so that the company will cease all discrimination against employees based on their country of origin, and for Zamorano and Stevenson to be awarded compensation in the form of punitive damages. And, well, they should, at least in this reporter's opinion. Let's get to our break, and then we'll come back and go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, A Portrait of the Artist as Art. Leaning into the Wind is filmmaker Thomas Reidelsheimer's follow-up to his 2003 documentary Rivers and Tides. Both films share the same subject, Scottish sculptor and nature artist Andy Goldsworthy. But today's artist is not yesterday's. Where Rivers and Tides focused on the ephemeral nature of Goldsworthy's pieces, Leaning into the Wind finds the artist 15 years later with a change in his medium. Goldsworthy still sculpts, and we see some pieces that are impressive in their scope, but he's also taken to finding his art in his own physical interaction with nature. It's almost performance art, but done on the sides of roads and in fields where few people may see it. At one point, Goldsworthy and Reidelsheimer and his camera are in a forest when it starts to rain. Goldsworthy immediately lies down, face up on a large flat rock. After some minutes, he stands revealing his silhouette where his body had shielded the rock surface from the water. It's a simple concept and execution, but the reveal is unexpected and the act striking as you start thinking about its suggested implications. We can see how easy it is for us to make our mark on the natural world. Though that mark can be significant, it is far from permanent. It's still raining. That silhouette will be gone in moments. Natural processes set in to eliminate our presence almost as soon as we establish it. Undoubtedly fitting style to subject matter, Reidelsheimer's film seems capricious in its episodic nature. There's no narrator, and Reidelsheimer keeps himself off camera. We are left with scenes of Goldsworthy. Goldsworthy working, doing his art, and talking in a divided interview that is as close as we get to a narrative spine for the film. In fact, Reidelsheimer, who did his own editing, lets us stumble into scenes much like a spectator stumbling across one of Goldsworthy's performance pieces. Like Rivers and Tides, Leaning into the Wind gives us a rare opportunity to capture Goldsworthy's art, which, designed not to last, we may otherwise not get a chance to see. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. The more we learn about Neanderthals, the more like us they become. They made jewelry from shells and eagle talons. They probably painted cave art. They may have buried their dead as well. And now some archaeologists say evidence is mounting for yet another skill the Neanderthals might have shared, the ability to navigate the seas.
And maybe that's just part of the human psyche of wanting to go and explore places, and maybe that extends back further than we would have thought.
Alan Simmons of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. He presented his case at a meeting of the Society for American Archaeology in Washington, D.C., first reported on in an article by journalist Andrew Lawler in the journal Science. The case goes like this. Hundreds of stone tools have now been found, lodged in ancient soils on Mediterranean islands like Crete and Naxos. We can't date the tools directly. They're too old for that. But Simmons says you can put them into a rough chronology with other tools, based on their sophistication. He compares it to car styles.
The tail fins of old Cadillacs, you could seriate those and you could show, well, this is older than this or more recent than this, but you couldn't put an absolute date on it. But that's exactly what we do with typologies and technology. This is the way these tools were made during a certain time period.
Those clues and other hints, like the fact the stone tools are buried in ancient soils, suggest the implements could date back to the Middle Paleolithic, somewhere between 50 and maybe 200,000 years ago, meaning they could have been made before we Homo sapiens showed up. And therefore, to leave tools on the islands, the tool makers must have plied the seas.
To me, what this suggests is something I've suspected all along, is that, say, Neanderthals at least had the same cognitive capabilities that fully modern people do. Because you don't just make a boat or a raft or whatever and go out and float around in the ocean. I mean, there's a lot of cognition involved. You have to have navigation skills. This has implications for language.
It's just speculation for now. Boat remains are nowhere to be found. But perhaps new digs and better dates on the tools that have already been uncovered will strengthen the case. Till then, it seems that old stereotype about Neanderthals being brutish cave dwellers is already critically endangered, if not extinct. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on May 7th, 2018. I'm Mark Belanger.
I got to tell you, I ain't been this excited for a good while.
That is Richard Trumka, the president of the AFL-CIO in the United States. The AFL-CIO is the largest union federation in the U.S. with some 13 million workers in 56 unions. At a recent conference at Yale University, Mr. Trumka was asked about the current situation of labor in the country and his hopes for the future. He mentions Paul Volcker, who was head of the Federal Reserve during the terms of Presidents Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. The Federal Reserve is the country's national bank. He also mentions the infamous firing of 11,000 members of the Air Traffic Controllers Union, PATCO, in 1981.
If you look at it, it was the labor movement that actually built the American middle class after World War II through collective bargaining. We took bad jobs and made them into good jobs. And then when we did that, productivity soared and wages soared. They were tied together. Productivity and wages were tied together. In the mid-'70s, a guy by the name of Paul Volcker decided he was going to change the rules. And so he was going to fight wages no matter what he did. The Federal Reserve, as you well know, has two jobs. Fights inflation, but it has to fight for full employment. Volcker said, I'll no longer concern myself with full employment. I will fight inflation, which meant fighting wage increases, in his opinion, even though it had proven wrong because they were tied to productivity. So then you had Ronald Reagan come along, and Ronald Reagan busts a union, PATCO, and says to the world, it's okay to bust unions. Before that, it was taboo. Nobody would bust a union because it was not a good thing to do. It was bad. Because unions had produced the middle class. Unions were helping with health and safety. Unions were creating legislation, pushing legislation to increase the minimum wage, protected pensions. And he busts the union, and it was free reign after that for them to come after unions. And then there's another milestone. When the wall fell in Europe and the Cold War sort of ended, that was a seminal moment when business decided it was okay again to go full tilt boogie to eliminate unions. Because prior to that, you had two systems that were competing. You had a communist system, you had a capitalist system, and everybody's saying this is good, this is better, and they didn't want to look bad and drive people to this system. But when communists fell, then it was free game, and they came after us. Now, that's the bad news. But here's the good news. Year before last, we organized 251,000 new members. Last year, we organized 262,000 new members. Of those people, 75% of those members were under the age of 35. People are angry. The system isn't working for them, and they're looking for a way to change the system and change the rules of the system. They elected Donald Trump because they thought he would change the rules. He has, not the way they had anticipated. And so they're looking for that rule change, and they're coming to us. Collectivism in the United States is alive, well, and on the rise. And I got to tell you, I ain't been this excited for a good while, because you got the women's movement coming together. You got Black Lives Matter. You got young people coming together. You got everybody out there, and teachers spontaneously saying, we're going to change a system that robs us of resources for this school, so we can't even give every kid a textbook. And you pay us these paltry wages that we can't live on. Collectivism is alive and well, and I tell you, I ain't felt this good in a long time, because I see young people on the rise saying we're stronger when we come together, and we can do things together that we can't do alone.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 Minutes. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, has reappointed 83-year-old Mahmoud Abbas as president, just days after Abbas drew international criticism for saying European Jews brought the Holocaust upon themselves because of their social professions as bankers. In addition to backing Abbas, the PLO parliament forestalled any discussion of a succession plan, something experts say will pose a major challenge upon Abbas's death or resignation, given sharp tensions between Abbas's Fatah movement in the West Bank and Hamas in Gaza. The ruling party of Malaysia has begun wielding a newly passed fake news law against the country's political opposition ahead of closely watched elections. 92-year-old Mahathir Mohamad hopes to unseat scandal-plagued Prime Minister Najib Razak on May 9th, but he now finds himself under investigation for alleging his private plane used to ferry him to campaign events may have been sabotaged, causing him to miss key rallies. According to the Anti-Fake News Act of 2018, those judged by the government to have spread wholly or partly false claims can be jailed for up to 6 years. And the number of Americans choosing to install residential solar panels on their homes is increasing, and the average income of those adopters is declining. Those findings, published this week by the Clean Energy States Alliance, signal that a previous trend of solar adoption only by America's wealthiest households is starting to change. Galen Barbos is a research scientist focused on electricity markets at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory.
Annual trends show that PV adopter incomes have been falling and converging toward the median income for the broader population.
But that convergence will take some more time. The average median household income of those installing solar panels is $92,000 a year, some 17% higher than the median income of all owner-occupied houses in the United States. Luke Vargas, the United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. And we always begin here at the chef's table with weather from around the world, and we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, we had an overnight low, they say, of 48, maybe. But we will be nice spring weather here in Southern Oregon, a high of 82 forecast, which could mean maybe 84, or it could mean 78. But my experience here, where the mothership is, at positively 3rd and Marie, is it'll be probably closer to 84. Winds are out of the southwest currently, light and variable, and will continue as such until tonight, when they will then shift out of the west-northwest and increase to 5 to 10 miles per hour. No chance of rain today. Oh, we had some thunderclaps, quite a torrential downpour of rain on Sunday night. I'm sorry, Saturday night, and it was quite exhilarating, electrifying. It was all the superlatives that one could imagine, and probably have heard over and over and over again about momentous thunderstorms. And it was quite a bit of rain. The only thing I was worrying about is that I had cast out some alyssum and zinnia, and those are shallow casts, so you only got a little bit of soil over it, maybe a quarter inch or so. And one always worries that when you have a big rain like that everything just gets washed away. But it looked like everything was okay, just sort of packed down a little bit better. We'll see. But the garden here at the mothership at Positively 3rd and Marie is beginning to flourish. Quite lovely. Grass pollen is very high. If you're exposed to grass pollen and it affects you, terribly, I feel bad. The UV index is high at 8, and I'm wearing a hat and sunscreen. Call me a nerd. Air quality index is good at 15 parts per million. Could be better. I like it when it's at 8, but 15, I'll let my mom sit out there for a bit. Pressure, we're experiencing high pressure, of course, and holding right now at 30.12 inches. Visibility is about 9 miles. Humidity is 89%, so there is some mist in the air in the upper reaches that would diminish visibility, apparently. Okay, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. And these people planted these personal purchased weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Okay, London is 82 and sunny. Oh, nice. Paris is 80 and sunny. That could be nice too, unless it's humid. Then it can be bad. But it's early for humidity there. Rome is 69 with heavy rain, and they do have a rain advisory, flooding, and could impact infrastructure and rain. So if you're on a moped or if you're on a Moto Guzzi, take care. Even if you're in a Fiat. Okay, Kiev is 71 and fair. Kabul is 64 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 76 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 58 degrees with showers in the vicinity. Sydney, Australia is 62 and clear. San Francisco, California is 52 degrees and sunny. And New York is 64 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny as spring can be in New York City. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these personal purchased weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Starting off here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays, is an article by Amanda Michelle Gomez out of Think Progress. Pruitt's political appointees now screen documents for nearly all Freedom of Information Act requests, and this is quite unusual. There is a courtesy extended to political appointees in various departments. But it looks like the Trump administration has decided to use that courtesy as carte blanche to run everything by a political appointee who will then say, we don't feel like we want to release documents. These are too sensitive. And since these are now political appointees in the EPA appointed by Scott Pruitt, they are not releasing anything that has to do with a Freedom of Information Act request dealing with Scott Pruitt. Isn't that nice? So there are so-called awareness reviews or senior management reviews. These are these courtesy extensions to political appointees. But now these political appointees are reprimanding career staff for releasing documents about Pruitt before they've screened him first. Okay. Now, of course, the EPA has been facing accusations of carrying out Pruitt's agenda in secret. Employees reportedly have had to leave cell phones behind when they meet with EPA administrator. Pruitt also spent thousands to install a secure soundproof phone booth in his office. This is a modern ark. He's communicating with God. He says every decision he makes comes down to him from on high in the actual voice of God. Now, you can't just go into a regular skiff. That is secular, by the way, and temporal. You need to be in an ark. Ark of the God. You know what I'm talking about. What Indiana Jones was trying to get from the Nazis. Keep the Nazis from getting the ark. Looks like they got it. Okay, well, the EPA declines to provide information about Pruitt's public appearances and would only release detailed schedules when pressed by lawsuits. Pruitt's office released FOIA requests at a lower rate than the rest of the EPA. Well, come on. He's God's emissary on earth.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
All right, finishing up here at the chef's table is an article by the great Ian Millhiser out of Think Progress. Now, anybody who's listened to me in real life, or on the various platforms that I pontificate from, either in written format or in a performing format. You may know my disdain for the Federalist Society, and I've had major disdain for them way back during the Reagan years. And so this fellow who could take over when Rosenstein gets fired, he'll have the clamps on Mueller. And he has been quoted as saying he will always say yes to the Federalist Society. Well, there you go. So even before he became Trump's top Supreme Court advocate, Solicitor General Noel Francisco was a magnet for Trumpian causes. Francisco was one of the tobacco industry's top appellate advocates. He represented the coal company at the heart of a deadly mining disaster. A coal company was owned by Trump's Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, by the way. In the Supreme Court, Francisco convinced the justices to effectively strip Obama of the recess appointments power. He represented religious conservatives attacking the Obama administration's efforts to expand access to birth control, and persuaded the court to legalize many forms of political bribery. In short, Francisco built his law practice as if his primary goal was to troll the libs. Flash forward a few years, and Francisco is now one of the most powerful and influential lawyers in the country. As Solicitor General, Francisco shapes the Trump administration's appellate litigation strategy and acts as one of the top advisors to the justices themselves. And as one of the Justice Department's top officials, Francisco is next in line to supervise Special Counsel Robert Mueller of Trump fires Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Francisco's record suggests that if given the power to rein in this threat to Trump's presidency, he would do so enthusiastically. As Solicitor General, Francisco helped transform his office from its traditional role as the American people's advocate before the Supreme Court into a litigation chop shop advancing Republican causes. Well, a feature, not a bug. This is what the Federalist Society has been doing for decades, been packing the courts, packing political appointees. What are you going to get? This is what you get. In the lead up to the 2016 election, Francisco co-authored an op-ed touting the Trumpian claim that the FBI had treated Hillary Clinton with kid gloves when it investigated her IT practices and ultimately determined that no charges were warranted. At a 2016 conference hosted by the Federalist Society, the conservative legal group that Trump relies upon to pick many of his judicial nominees, Francisco offered a vision of the Second Amendment that was straight out of the NRA's paranoid fantasia about armed citizens shooting back at their government. He also began his remarks with a declaration of loyalty. I always say yes to the Federalist Society. Well, of course he would. Okay, so now the Solicitor General is sometimes known as the 10th Justice now. And because of their profound impact on the Supreme Court's conduct in any given term, the Solicitor General is likely to file a brief in the majority of argued cases heard by the court. And the court, moreover, routinely seeks the Solicitor General's advice on whether it should hear a particular case. Well, that's nice. Yet all this influence comes at a price, or at least it has in the past. The Solicitor General is the ultimate repeat player in Supreme Court litigation. He is the custodian of more than a century of credibility the past office holders earned by placing the institutional interests of the court, the legal system, and the United States itself before those of any particular administration. But no, we are seeing disaster capitalism and disaster deconstructing of the administrative state, aren't we now? Yes, we are. Okay, read the rest of the article at the links provided. So you'll have to find those links, and they are on my diary at Daily Coast. And if you check out the podcast, links will take you there too. So do that. And so we'll meet up tomorrow for Terrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Stay tuned to Netroots Radio for the rest of the day for breaking news as it breaks. And we may be breaking in live if the big breaking news breaks, as we've been advising you on. So stay tuned to Netroots Radio for the rest of the day for that. And we will meet up with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de Novembre. près du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.